at the full dinosaur. Compared to the head of the dinosaur, the back end was preserved nearly intact.
You call them hemo arches, I call them the chevrons, these little pieces that stick down from the tail. To me, it's unusual to find so many of them in such good preservation.
We were very lucky that the tail was found practically in articulation, and the sequence of the vertebrae was very well preserved. And beside every vertebrae, we found all of the chevrons that we get.
Now, we're just dealing with a lightweight cast here, but how much would this have weighed in real life?
Oh, the real bone of the fossil bone could be about 80, 90 kilos in weight.
200 pounds for one bone.
Right.
The shape of the leg bone was Korea's first clue that he was dealing with a new and unfamiliar animal, one worthy of its own name.
It's very funny the moment that you have to decide the name of the dinosaur, because you have a huge responsibility on your shoulders. You know that if you are right in proposing a new genus, that name will be preserved in the future forever. Choosing a name for the dinosaurs is like bringing a new baby to the world, a big baby. Giganotosaurus means giant reptile from the south.
This is not the real head, I realize.
No, it's not. And also, it's not the actual idea that we got about the size of the skull of Giganotosaurus. This guess is showing our first guess about the size, the length of the skull of Giganotosaurus.
So you guessed too small.
Right, yes.
An accurate cast of the head would be crucial to solving the mystery of just how big Giganotosaurus was. After much meticulous searching, Rudolfo Correa and his crew finally found the prize. More than 70% of the Giganotosaurus' skull, including the entire brain case.
So we found, right here, we found the brain case, looking to the bottom, to the wall.
To assemble a replica of Giganotosaurus, Correa called in Mario Dano, who has been reconstructing dinosaurs for more than 3 decades.
But in the right position.
Right position, because the hemo arches were still with them.
She compares this present-day dig to the earliest days of dinosaur hunting in the American West.
It's like the 1880s. My thoughts are finding this vast amount of material, new material, and all over this continent that has never been known before.
To help Correa get a more accurate measurement of Giganotosaurus, O'Donnell created molds of the bones and brought them back to her lab in Los Angeles. There, with the help of a team of workers, she began to cast the whole dinosaur. Painstaking work that would bring Giganotosaurus to life in 3 dimensions. Several months into the project, Maria Gravino arrived from Argentina to help link her sculpted bones with O'Donnell's cast.
Most people think that you find a dinosaur all laid out, and all you have to do is clean it off, put it together, and put it on display. That just never happens. And there are always missing parts, parts that need reconstruction. So I learned to model and to make molds on missing parts.
Only a handful of people in the world specialize in casting dinosaurs. Mary O'Donnell's been at it for over 30 years.
In 1966, when the LA County found a T-Rex skull, that was the largest skull in existence at that time, and I got to work on that, and I thought, that is the best thing that ever happened to me. It'll never happen again.
After months of difficult work, the final cast of the head is ready to be made. Polyester resin, thickened with talc and white paint, is brushed on the solid areas of the rubber mold.
This material, just painted by itself, is not very strong. It'll be backed with glass cloth, strips of glass cloth, and then it becomes very strong.
Once the glass cloth is applied, the resin begins to dry, a process which can take an entire day. And while the resin dries, O'Dano and the crew work quickly to clamp and bolt the many sections of the beast's head together. Rudolfo Correa has come from Argentina to check in on the process and help pull the mold.
We're all feeling pretty apprehensive about this first cast. It's the first reconstruction for this skull. It's the largest of its kind. It's an entirely new animal. And we're hoping very much that the cast will come out good and be a success.
Finally, after a half a year, the time has come to pull the mold and see if their effort has paid off.
This is a huge mold with a lot of underhangs, a lot of nooks and crannies that are going to be difficult to separate the mold from the cast. Yeah, get your fingers in here. The fingers in here and it'll pull. And when I say pull it, it means we'll be pulling on that. It'll be under a great deal of stress to remove the silicone rubber from the cast. Oh God, it's, oh, beautiful, just beautiful.
When the upper jaw was finally revealed, it was perfect.
It's really beautiful, really beautiful. You sweat a little blood over that. Ooh, with holes in his head and everything. I'll tell you, this is better than I expected. It really is. All that worry. God.
For Mary O'Dano, reconstructing Giganotosaurus was the culmination of a life's dream.
It's terrific. It's like an out-of-body experience, but it's a reality that you're seeing something that no human eyes have seen before, and that lived, in this case, 100 million years ago. I don't know. And it's a rare privilege that those of us who work in this field have. I think this on this side.
Back in Chicago, Paul Sereno and his team were busy putting together the bones from Morocco, a puzzle made more difficult to solve because so many pieces were missing.
Through patience, the graduate students and myself over a couple of months, slowly, like a porcelain plate dropping on the floor, we put that porcelain plate back together, and that was the whole midsection of the skull.
Oh, this is really fantastic.
Although they'd found only half a skull, an artist could flesh out a replica of the full head of Carcharodontosaurus. And Sereno could make some impressive estimates of its overall size.
I think we're talking about a skull that is clearly 5.5 feet long, and we're talking about a body length of between 45 and 50 feet.
But the complete cast of the Giganotosaurus head measured in at just over 6 feet long, half a foot longer than the largest T-Rex. The race to dethrone the king of dinosaurs continued. Correa and his team brought the Giganotosaurus head to New York to be viewed at a conference at the American Museum of Natural History.
The dinosaur trampling scene.
Even New Yorkers who thought they'd seen everything were surprised at the sight. And at the conference, the group of paleontologists and artists was equally impressed.
Wow, marvelous. Blood and guts, the whole business. I'm amazed. It's absolutely monstrous. Big teeth. And we find teeth in Utah that size, but not a complete skull.
Well, I've always liked big meat eaters. I grew up in this museum in New York. I grew up with this T-Rex in New York, the first T-Rex ever mounted. I'm very fond of it.
I just looked at the skull for the first time, and I'm overwhelmed to see it in person. It's one of the most amazing skulls I've seen. I saw the T-Rex skull, which I grew up with looking at T-Rexes, but to see this creature, which is much bigger, it's astonishing. The kid in me really is interested in which one's the biggest. And I think we all want to know what was the biggest meat eater among the dinosaurs.
The challenge had been made. Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus. Two ferocious giant meat eaters, both large, perhaps larger than T-Rex. But could either one of the new monsters truly lay claim to T-Rex's title as king of the meat-eating dinosaurs? And which one would it be? As word spread of the discovery of two giant dinosaurs which might dethrone T-Rex, paleontologists wanted to know how they evolved and how closely they were related. Both Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus walked the Earth about 100 million years ago. Their bodies were similar in shape, but one lived in Africa, the other in South America. How did two such similar animals evolve so far apart? 145 million years ago, when the landmass was one supercontinent, the largest predator was a 30 to 40 foot long meat eater called Allosaurus. If you want to catch an Allosaurus today, the place to go is central Utah. The Cleveland Lloyd Quarry near Price has produced a phenomenal jumble of allosaur bones in the last 2 decades. Enough to remake 44 dinosaurs.
And this makes the blood pressure of a dinosaur hunter rise. His heart starts to beat fast. This is a paradise for a dinosaur hunter.
The paleontologist in charge of the site is Don Burge.
And the concentration of bones right here would go up to, say, 50 bones per square yard. I think maybe it was some kind of a lake or spring-fed bog, and it had to have something to entice these meat eaters, a bait for the trap. Maybe like cheese for a mouse. In this case, a plant-eating dinosaur that was stuck out here in a bog. And so this bipedal carnivore looks out there, and here's supper, and he gets stuck in this bog.
But what was the relationship, if any, between the Allosaurus and the two new giants of the South?
All I can say is they're certainly related. They're cousins.
Paleontologist Bob Bacher believes that a more mysterious Jurassic cousin, Megalosaurus, may have been the largest of all the meat eaters. Bacher runs the Tate Museum in Casper, Wyoming.
Allosaurus only had one animal to fear that was a rare predator, even bigger than they were. That predator was a megalosaur, an animal that's still much of a mystery. We just call it Big Ed.
A complete skeleton of Megalosaurus has never been found, but Bacher has a few impressive parts, including the jugal, which he uncovered in the mountains of Wyoming.
This is part of the megalosaur. Doesn't look like much. It's a rib shaft that fit in the rear of the torso around the guts. But what's spectacular is the rib keeps on going and going and going and going and going and going. This rib is 4.5 feet long, which means the guts, if you added the belly, are 6 feet deep. And if you added the top of the backbone, you have 8.5 feet of torso. That's huge. That's as big as any Giganoto or Carcharodonto or any T-Rex. So this mystery Jurassic dinosaur, Big Ed, is right up there with the largest.
Bigger doesn't necessarily mean tougher.
See these holes?
Yeah.
Those are wounds. This thing got bit.
If they both lived at the same time, who would win a fight between Megalosaurus and T-Rex?
Megalosaurs were close quarter fighters. They were designed to attack in densely bushed, densely forested, wet terrain. Their flexible bodies would let them go around trees. Their